Hello, everyone. As I was going through sort of your validation and some of your interviews that you did, I noticed some common, mistakes or trends popping up. So I have this old, PowerPoint that I made. I figured I'd just go through it really quick and highlight some of the really important things that some folks might be missing the mark on, or maybe it's just a good reminder. So this is the do's and don'ts of discovery. So the first thing you should do is be a detective. When you're doing this pain validation and pain discovery, your number one thing you're trying to do is learn as much as you can and be like a detective where you're kind of keeping the other person in the dark. If a detective is, interviewing somebody, a witness, he's not going to lead on exactly what his point behind the questions are. He's trying to learn from an unbiased perspective what happened or what's occurring, right? So you want to be kind of secretive like a detective. This is the biggest problem I saw, people giving up their idea, telling the people they're interviewing what their idea is. This is bad. This is not what a detective does. And detectives have to be creative with some of their problem solving. So last semester or last year, there was a couple of guys making an app or a service for people to buy drinks at coffee shops and bars online ahead of time so they could pick up really quickly. And so one of the ways that they were like a detective, one of the things we figured out for them to do is to just go to bars and coffee shops and time how long it took people to get their drink from whenever they got in line, right? So that was they didn't go up to people and say, "Hey, I'm making an app for people who have to wait for their coffee drink. Do you wait for coffee?" That's a leading question. They might change their response because they know what you're trying to do and what you're getting at. So instead of asking them like that, they just kind of were detectives. They sat and watched people in the coffee shop or at bars, saw how long it took for them to wait to get their drink, and then they were able to validate and kind of quantify the problem without ever even asking the people who felt the problem. You're gonna want to do a lot more listening than you do talking, if possible. Let them sort of just air out their problems, even if this leads you in directions you didn't expect. You can always bring it back to center. Let them sort of wander and kind of talk stream of consciousness. The big don't, the big thing you don't want to do is be a salesman. This is what I think a lot of people are doing right now. Is you're excited about your guess, your idea, and you want other people to get in on it and like it and sign up or whatever it is. So your instinct is to talk about your idea and try and sell it and make it sound as nice as possible so that people tell you that yes, they'll want they want your product, they want your service. But people will respond better to you when you're not trying to sell them something. Um, so if people think they're being sold to, that's like a bad sign right off the bat. But it also biases them. One, it biases them to think about the problem that you're trying to solve, maybe not the problem that they experience, and you're biasing them with their solution. So, like if they know what I'm trying to do, they might want to, save my feelings and say, oh, yeah, I do feel this problem and this would be great. You'd be surprised how many, you probably wouldn't be surprised. A lot of people will tell you that they like your idea or that they like your product just because they don't want to hurt your feelings. That's just how it is. So don't be a salesman, be a detective. One thing you need to do is have a strategy. Have, some questions will come up off the cuff. That's good. Follow up questions should be very much like that. But have a strategy. Have a long, exhaustive list of every question you could possibly think to ask them that would help you learn more about the subject matter, about the pain or the problem. Have a hypothesis or several hypotheses or these assumptions that you test. You can actually make each question lined up to one or multiple guesses or assumptions that you have. Make every question strategic and getting you to a point that will either tell you, yes, this leans towards the problem being real, or no, it leans away from the problem being real. Have a strategy. This one is, don't ask, would you? Don't ask about their future intentions because they can lie about the future. Maybe they have ideas of what they want to do in the future, but they never get around to it. Like, oh, I would totally work out and be healthy. but I've never done it in the past. That type of thing. Ask, have you, do you? Ask about things that they have done. Ask about the behavior that they have, taken, the actions they've taken, the alternative solutions to the problem that they've currently acted upon, right? People are much more honest if they're talking about things that actually happened versus things that are not honest, but, the past happened, the future hasn't happened. So ask them about their past. Um, those would you questions aren't as reliable. I'm going to cut off. Oh, all right. This one, do ask follow-up questions. So, like I said, it's great to have a strategy, but don't miss out on the opportunity just because you have a perfect plan for all the questions you want to ask. You know, asking them simply to elaborate or talk more about something is one of the best follow-up questions you can ask. Make sure you are letting them steer the interview. So if it's going in a complete different direction, you might have to forget about the questions that you had planned. So don't just do a survey. Surveys are, good in the future, and I think when you want to collect more information, um, yeah, surveys can be helpful. But you're not going to learn nearly as much as you would from an in-person conversation, and that's why it's so important that you're having live conversations in person if you can. Start with as many as you can possibly get out before you go to the surveys. For example, somebody like Grace who's working with golf courses, maybe she hits a limit to where she can no longer actually get in person to the golf courses to speak to more. So maybe at that point she could send out, surveys, or maybe she could do phone calls to different golf courses, but not until you've exhausted as much in-person conversations as you're able to do. This is huge. Leverage networks. Once the meeting is about to end, don't let it just end. The best place to find interviewees is from your interviewees. Are you looking for musicians? The musician that you just interviewed probably knows other musicians. Are you looking for college students who are, computer science majors? Well, they probably have classmates and friends, right? So don't forget to ask before you finish the conversation if there's anybody else they know that you could talk to. Simple as that. I've had so many meetings happen simply because I ended a meeting by asking, do you know anybody else who might want to meet with me? Simple as that. Yeah, this sounds easy. Don't forget to follow up just with any meeting you do. Follow up with a thank you. Be polite. This will help you because you're probably going to want to return to these people for a solution interview. Follow up for them when you have a testable product ready or an MVP ready. This is when you can start to become a salesperson. Not in your first conversation, but in later conversations. Return to that problem, present your solution, and then see if they still, resonate with what you're doing. So definitely don't forget to follow up. But don't follow up in the same meeting. Don't tell them about the solution in that same meeting. That, like I said, that's the number one problem I kept seeing pop up with all of your submissions.